Alright, in this video we're reviewing Rob Zombie's Hellbilly Deluxe Volume 2. So, after I purchased Educated Horses, I took a very long, I don't know if I'd call it a break from Rob Zombie releases, just because they weren't really on my periphery. I knew he was releasing stuff, I just didn't really grab anything. And what I mean by long break, I mean like years and years and years. However, despite it being quite some time, I decided a few months ago to go to a record shop, a used record shop, and I just was looking through the CDs, and it was actually kind of funny because Hellbilly Deluxe Volume 2 was in that shop, so I was like, okay, well, I'll grab this. And sequentially, as a studio release, it comes after Educated Horses, so it's just kind of funny how I ended up picking up the CD the album that comes after Educated Horses, at least the studio album. Hellbilly Deluxe 2 is vastly different than Educated Horses, almost as if Rob Zombie realized that everyone's interested in the horror stuff rather than like whatever the fuck Educated Horses was. I felt Rob Zombie was going in a more... It's kind of funny because being that Educated Horses is named Educated Horses, so it kind of has this like Western hillbilly vibe to it, even though it's not really a Western country album. It does definitely have a hillbilly vibe to it, or at least that's what I found. So I figured maybe after Educated Horses he kind of realized that his followers and his fan base weren't really interested in that kind of vibe, so he did Hellbilly Deluxe Volume 2. I would say Hellbilly Deluxe Volume 2 was a return of form for Rob Zombie. Some of the standout tracks for me were Jesus Frankenstein, Sick Bubblegum, What? I found What was really groovy. I just liked the grooves. I really liked Virgin Witch. I liked the structure and the darker sounds. I also liked The Man Who Laughs, and the reason why I like The Man Who Laughs is because there's a fucking like a drum solo in that song, and I don't know how long it goes on in the song, but it goes on for a long time. And as an honorable mention, I would say the Werewolf Woman of the SS was a decent track as well. The thing with Rob Zombie is that he uses a lot of samples, a lot of, I suspect a lot of, well, obviously a lot of horror movie samples, and I'm not entirely sure where he gets a lot of his samples from. I think in past releases there's things that are recognizable, but in this particular release I couldn't really place where the samples were coming from. But his sample use is really good. I would say this is a solid album. I would suggest checking this out. There's another thing I like about Rob Zombie's releases, at least the physical versions, at least the CDs. I will say the fun thing about his releases, the physical releases, is that the booklet is almost like a story or a comic or something like that. I really like that about the physical releases of Rob Zombie, just because it gives you something to look forward to with his albums, and kind of just like look at while you're listening to it. Just makes it a little bit more fun to kind of like gives you a reason to actually look at the booklet. I would say that this is a little bit different from the very first Rob Zombie release, Hellbilly Deluxe Volume 1, but this does make sense as the Volume 2 of that release. I don't feel like it has the same impact as it used to when I was younger. Like I always thought, when I was younger, like, when Rob Zombie quit White Zombie or dissolved that band and then came out with his own solo project as Rob Zombie, that album, Hellbilly Deluxe Volume 1, was you know, is it iconic? Maybe. You know, the horror themes, the Dragula, that whole fucking video with the monster's car or whatever the fuck it was. You know, that, to me, it was really impactful, and you know, the songs on that album really stood out. And then of course the second album after that, The Sinister Urge, that album maybe not as impactful as Hellbilly Deluxe, but it was still a solid sophomore release. Over the years, it's kind of, I found that it's not as, the albums haven't been as impactful, whereas an artist like Nine Inch Nails, almost everything that they've come out with, at least to me, you know, there's always like pushing forward technology and pushing forward sound and you know, innovating industrial rock or rock in general. And you know, with Rob Zombie in the beginning, I felt like he was kind of, granted he was kind of I wouldn't say he was jumping on the bandwagon of industrial music, but he you know, he was heavily influenced by it. And then of course when Hellbilly Deluxe Volume 1 came out, there was a whole shit ton of industrial influences in there, a lot of electronics and stuff like that. And maybe it was because after Educated Horses, I hadn't really specifically gone and looked for Rob Zombie releases. I knew he was releasing stuff, but it just kind of wasn't on my periphery, and maybe that's why I don't feel that the albums these days are as impactful as they were in the beginning. You know, although listening to the albums sequentially, I just don't feel like they're as impactful. Like even when he released the most recent one in, was it 2021 or 2022? Can't remember, but that album, granted the production and the sound quality, just the sound design, all of that, really crisp. Everything sounds really polished and really just like, yeah, but it doesn't feel as impactful, whereas once again, comparing to like Nine Inch Nails or other bands like Korn or something like that, you know, I find that those albums are more impactful from those bands. But maybe it's because Korn and Nine Inch Nails are my favorite bands of all time, and so maybe I'm biased. But yeah, I'm not entirely certain. Maybe you have a different opinion. Maybe you feel that the Rob Zombie albums after Hellbilly Deluxe Volume 1 and The Sinister Urge were still impactful. If you do think that, let me know in the comments. That's it for this video. Once again, I recommend listening to Hellbilly Deluxe Volume 2. I actually recommend listening to any and every Rob Zombie album. Very solid stuff. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section. If you value what's on this channel, please share it with your friends and hit that subscribe button to be notified when the next video comes out. That's it. See you in the next video.